Hello everyone. The title of today's episode is Who Changed the Channels? And Mr. Within would like to share some ideas on the phenomena of channeling and perhaps a bit of an experiential view on what multidimensionality and multidimensional communication is. You see, you are positioned in individuality. What that means is you probably have a name, you probably want some things, you probably feel that your ability is only in the maintenance of this body, or you may feel that this body is an opening to greater maintenance. You may feel that your moment is segmented, you may feel you have a past, you may feel you have a future, you may feel even that you are present. But you will need to understand that the difference between perhaps man's communication with life is the difference he can confront. Your availability of a subjective sense of taking steps in abstract worlds is actually how you have acknowledged the origin of your awareness. When it is said, who changed the channels? What that means is that who gave you the allowance to see beyond yourself, who allowed you to step into novelty and rediscover the self of selves into its dissolution within existential observance. You see, I see certain people sit on a chair and be another form. You see, for me, how multidimensionality opened up was that it was an awareness to how my existence, my experiential existential intelligence, was beyond the ideologies that tried to even touch conception to see who conceived it. When a being is excited in its world, it engages to discover its presence. When you go in an environment where others are playing a game, as you observe the game, as the game becomes real, you too choose to play. Now, the game of life has been played since your birth. But you must have an ability to confront beyond the sense of time and space. You have now to experientially move beyond a communication that is just humane. What that means is, bless all those people who step out of their comfort zone to show us the possibilities of new worlds of vision. What I have noticed is that channeling is a name given to an expression of life. But as the sage becomes observant and sees that life is here, regardless of the interpretation, you are no longer a yogi trying to control the four elements externally. You are observant of the projection of individuality, and as you observe your individuality, you will give it depth. You cannot stare at something and not create a depth of awareness. That is the phenomena of the human experience. For every morning, dawn seems to dawn as our eyes open. dawn seems to dawn on us as our eyes open. At first, if you were to go sit down on a chair, of course this is Mr. Within's experience, and let us just change it from a chair, and if you were to go sit down silently and in a still manner in nature, and if you allowed yourself just complete silence and stillness to observe what you are, you will begin finding and discovering movements of flow in how you are conceiving abstraction, but you are not integrated. It's as if the minute you try to observe yourself as life and not just an idea or a certain shape in life, you get a shapeless sense of knowing that your presence is beyond the linearity that thought only things were in a certain way. And as you observe, this interesting phenomenon might happen to you. This, of course, happened in my experience in a very interesting time of my life. But how it happened is I gained an awareness to a movement in thought, but with a certain subtlety. So if you are very aware, you will realize anger is not your, the self-talk that you find in an angry man is not his. It is his response and reaction to trying to preserve a temporal identity in a moment where he has forgot of the eternity that man basks in. You see, the greatest teachers did not tell you to come to them. They told you to go to yourself. For the greatest teacher, the guru, what you see is you are seeing within yourself. When I see a man worship, or when I see a man steer a worship, I begin to see human experience that is aware of itself. But how much is it aware of the world that is giving that self-meaning? You become existentially compassionate suddenly to the point that you are not ignoring your thoughts. You do not think you are a thinker. That's arrogance. Communicate. Understand the design of how imagery comes into conscious view and fades. Remember and see what you have visited in your deepest gaze. And you will see that as you pay attention to the subtlety in thought, you, because you have yourself as an intelligent being, based on your own reflection, have become aware of greater projections of reflection. What that means is many beings are not channeling another being. They are becoming a voice of an intelligence that is existentially present. It is part of how the plane of existence is navigated as an individual consciousness becomes silent and still to allow all that it has recorded and considered to begin to become a great dance. What that means is there are moments where the silent meditator feels like royalty as he stands untouched by all this objectivity that is flowing. Like a river that understands the waterfall, but knows that it is the ocean. An interesting phenomenon that will happen is that the more existentially comfortable you are with yourself, the more you are acknowledging the present moment gracefully, where you are, literally the room you're in and who you are and just how you feel, and you take it to a level where you realize that based on your nature you feel sincere and honest, which are just there. It's an empty feeling, but it's a normal feeling, you know. You begin to see, actually it's beyond a normal feeling, but it's you know your honest self, you know your sincere self, because you are it. And as you become more graceful with using this physical frame, this physical materiality as your reference, you will immediately gain access to an observance within you. So you need to cultivate existential observance. That means it doesn't matter how the game is, you need to be aware that the actor is always and can always be aware of the act. You see, back then they had a concept of, they called it a divine play. And in that kind of spiritual culture, then they understood that thought was something that was being allowed to be created based on the attention of the being. And so it is profound how consciousness has been able to adjust form in such a positioning that it is always aware of it beyond the segmentation the form creates for itself. Your body may dwell forever in a wasteland, but the awareness to the body is the beams of the sun that have become your path as you know yourself through your brightest view. For it seems that thought is something you are keeping in a certain relationship, and as you cultivate an existential observance, you move beyond even how your mind works non-linearly in regards to bringing senses of identity and projections, but you move to a degree where you have situated in the knowing. What that means is you are not saying you know there's another being here based on what you see. Outside of sensory perception, your intuition is how you have stood there. And trust me, many beings had an awareness. An intuitive life is one where you are seeing completion in the incomplete. And you see, there can be a terminal because time and space are being observed from nothing to something. So as you observe the somethingness, the thingness of it, as you're observing it, you suddenly also observe every memory, form, projection, shape, word, letter, every color, everything that has come to define senses and segment them. You bring man's history, and in a sense, for a second, you realize history, the words say his story, and the his was you. Your acceptance of your reality becomes the projection or the suggestion of what your history is and where you have come from. So, to be honest, humanity right now on the plane, on this plane of existence, on this planet, is basking in the luxury of the consciousness technology of language, which can solidify subjective views into a solidity that we are experiencing. When you begin to see that same chaotic paintbrush stroke from the artist that just, in a sense, gave the page a new meaning, gave the emptiness of the page a new meaning, had aspects to it which was gross and which was subtle. What that means is you see the origin of your awareness, regardless of how you are, where you have been, whatever, regardless of how you're acknowledging abstraction, regardless of your hierarchical system of what kind of a being you are and what kind of beings you're talking to. You are all present now, and so you must begin learning to listen to the voice of the whole world, which is your whole moment of an experience, timeless, spaceless. For when the clouds fade, the limitless sky appears to show that in the end of ends, at the edges of this universe, there is only the passage of disappearance. You are a temporal being. You must recognize when there is appearance, there is disappearance. And as the seasons pass, you will see there is something beyond your appearance. Because they have told us many times, don't judge a book by its cover. So what are you covering your face with? Because on some level, ideology gives us the freedom, as I am speaking now, to show, but on another angle, it takes away of the availability of direct experience the being can have within their moment of existence, their moment of being. When simple words are brought together, they become complex. When simple leaders come together, they get great leadership, complex leader tactics. And of course, these tactics are nothing against, you're not trying to fight the world to make it better. You are trying to envision and through your clarity and the knowing of your being, see the greater possibility that is your transcendental presence and then work comfortably. What that means is one room in the house is not all the space you're allowed to explore. But you must first know that this existential plane is a room in your house and you are existentially whole. For divine reunion is found with every breath. Once in the inhale and the exhale have dissolved into one another, the dance of eons will stop to begin again. Now, it's very crucial to know that channeling is a new idea, and I'm going to speak very, very vividly here. You're not here to hold a remote and sit in front of the TV and change the channels, but you must always respect, and you must respect the path of others in how they are opening up to greater sense of their own conscious knowing. What that means is we must have such existential compassion and tolerance as a race that we are not worried by abstraction. We clap and give medals to people who are the most newest thinkers that are breaking thought to open this world. And the eyes of that which is beyond the world. Become cognizant of how you are treating idea and begin to see how ideology is in a sense relating to the views you have that are abstract, but do not just acknowledge your imagination and as a void or something that you only get certain memories sometimes. Acknowledge your awareness as a moment of infinite possibility, for it truly is. It is not a possibility for a shape. For it will be very hard for the candlelight that's basking in sunlight to understand that its illumination is not coming from the wax, unless it is aware it is basking in greater lights. Be graceful, be grateful, walk sincerely, be very compassionate. There is intelligence here that is beyond man's understanding, but it must be explored within. You must self-explore. You must go and see where your ideas come and what they have brought you. You must see how you have taken steps in this life and what is the beautiful poetry to how you have lived. And when you see that you don't know, a profound I don't know steps in front of you, it's that moment where your reflection in the mirror is silently standing there, and you're no longer talking about your reflection in the mirror being real or not real or whatnot, and you're such directly and experientially aware of it that in an instant you are able to stand out of the mirror. However, in an instant, you too have come to stand in the mirror. What that means is the infinity sign is a beautiful metaphor for the journey of a being between individual consciousness and collective consciousness, and the different curves in time and space that are found in how abstraction chooses to display itself. For we are using the technology of relating one thing to another thing, to another thing, to another thing. There are some existential observances, there's some beings where their view is a simultaneous knowing from their being. You align with the knowing that you are energetically present here as a being, and then without a need for abstraction, you become aware of your moment without any touch. It's an untouched sense of view, and as you are there viewing all that you are, you will see there is no need to fill that container with a sense of words that could never show the world. But at the same time, all form is your guide and the sign to that which is within and to that which man is within. Trust life. Humanity is opening to a new sense of culture and multidimensionality. That means people have to acknowledge each other in much more tolerant, patient, and able ways. What that means is when you see, for example, someone suddenly, you're sitting with friends and just naturally begin to speak and just say so many things just flowing, you let that person talk. Oh gosh, I'm glad I've done that. Because you begin to see that you're allowing the being to, in a sense, be a communication beyond its ideology. Sometimes I just ask people and I'm like, you see that stream that's naturally flowing? I want you to naturally just begin talking and saying what you feel needs to be said in the moment. And it's a phenomenal thing, for there have been many times where I've seen that person speak exactly what was on the people's mind there. And it seems that when you don't try to create a certain terminal, you don't try to speak to a certain somebody, but you have a sense of knowing that is beyond a need for a certain body. Within truth, man was beyond truth. And it's a beautiful thing because it may come across as channeling to you at first, but it is all you. You are understanding yourself beyond a need for a segmentation of your time and space to be only in a past to present relationship. You are going into a collective sense of being, so in other words, your consciousness is collective, so there is an allowance for a future potential to be present in that which is fixating itself in this plane of existence. And of course, these are very abstract ideas, but the point is that you need to trust your moment, and whether you feel it's another being or not, you need to realize your experience is originating within your awareness. And you are always able, because there was a moment where it was suggested in Buddhism that when the Buddha sat down, an army of darkness came forward, and it was as if so many dark arrows were being thrown from him, from the edges and corners of his mind, of the darkest things and the cruelest things and the lack of allowance that this being had created. He saw all of these dark archetypes project, and in an instant he turned them, the arrows, into lotus flowers. For the Buddha knew that there is something within this present, this self-aware present, that is beyond itself. And it's as if there was a reason, it was suggested in many religious texts, that the ability of man was beyond the hierarchy. For man's awareness could transcend. It could be known as more of a greater experience. And this means you're no longer just an experience of somebody in the room. Suddenly you become an awareness of the room to yourself, then the house to yourself, then the sky to yourself, then the cosmos to yourself, then the abstraction to yourself, then I don't know to yourself. And you will see that life will take you to a point where you will surrender all that you have known to see that you could have never known. But you have always been the knowing. For the elegance of the honest fool was that his moment and the world was intelligently taken care of. And you're not an honest fool for trusting your intuition, but you will see you are trying to move beyond realities that are upon you. What that means is regardless of what kind of a being you are, if you just look at life and ask life for guidance, ask life for any form of communication that comes out of your mouth, you will begin to become more aware to what you have put an intention to consciously see. And so, even though multidimensional communication might open up, you will see that it will be abstraction. You will not trust your imagination until you do. And it is then where the clarity in communication shall also be an implication of this world. Because many people who are engaged in the phenomena of channeling, if you look at their life, it is not something that can be linearized, because it doesn't have to be. Their life is designed to give them a permission to move beyond the boundary of just a certain human identity and to bring forth more advanced human communication. There is no one holding the remote, but all that is. Find the humility that will break the idea, and that will remind you of the source of presence. Here and now, blessed to be. Very compassionately take your steps within this divine sanctuary. Much blessings and namaste.